Hello, my name's George Morgan. I'm the writer and director of the animated short film, The Red Bull. I've recorded a series of talks with my trusted and talented collaborators on the project in order to promote the release of The Red Bull, as well as to provide some value for those watching and for those who want to know a little bit of information behind the scenes. I'm currently joined by Mike Young, the illustrator on The Red Bull. How did you hear about this project? What was your initial in for this?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd never really heard of an illustrator on an animation before, and it was actually through us meeting through a separate project for Open Lab with creative people and places, where we both took over unused shops, and we had our own creative style of bringing a project to Basildon Town Centre, and I was doing my illustration, and you were doing your filmmaking and everything, and we really kind of clicked in that situation. I felt, and we started discussing, possible projects, and then you approached me with the funding that we might be able to get for a animation, and asked whether I'd ever done an animation before, which I hadn't. So it was all very intriguing to me to kind of get involved. It's something that I've always wanted to do,
Mm.
and coming it from an illustration point of view, it was just finding another string to add to my bow, really,
Mm.
and that's how it all got kind of started, really.
Yeah, yeah. I vividly remember about, the exhibitions that we did in Basildon and 100% being blown away by your exhibition and the work
Thank
that
you.
you did. So that was 100% why I wanted to work with you. And of course, like you said, because we clicked, we got on, and I think that's kind of a vital tip perhaps for people watching who are getting into this. You've got to be able to get on with the person, and you were the first person who I asked to come on board for the project. So that is extremely important to the genesis of the Red Bull. What did you discover? What did you have to do as an illustrator?
Yeah, so I mean, I think when we knew we wanted to work together,
Mm.
and then so when we started going to the talks that they were talking about how we go about getting the funding, and at that point, we
Mm.
thought that maybe I could be the animator on it. We didn't really know how much it would entail, whether I could learn on the job and everything, and but quickly, I think we kind of learned that we needed to bring an animator on board and stuff. So I was kind of wondering what my role was going to be, but it actually ended up being quite extensive, and it was a learning curve, I think, for both of us.
Mm.
Speaking to Claire, who was the animation director, and she was explaining, that what went into the illustrator role would be the character design,
Mm.
creating the storyboarding. So then we'd all sit down together once we doing the storyboarding and work out the pacing and everything like that.
Mm.
And there was also the background design,
Mm.
and what actually turned into is creating the full backgrounds ready for the animation to appear on as well.
Mm. Mm.
So yeah, so there was a lot involved in it, because I think there's about 4 or 5 characters in there,
About
and
that, yeah.
they needed that from all different angles, sort of
Mm.
thing. And you and me sort of spoke a lot about how you envisaged the characters looking. I would come back to you with different ideas, different styles, and then you would say you like that or tweak that and stuff. And so it was a lot of back and forth between myself and you, and then also a lot of back and forth between me and Claire, because obviously she had an idea around how she was going to animate it. And one of the things that I had to kind of get used to was, yeah, like realizing how my role fits into the bigger picture,
Mm.
and how that serves the story as well. So that was a
Mm.
really nice learning curve.
Yeah, 100%. And, when I spoke to Claire earlier, it was vital that there was a conversation going on between us about everything from character and how we wanted the character to look, and how specific the character needed to look. But it was obviously amazing to see your illustrations, on the screen, because, you know, that is one of the reasons why I really wanted to work with you, because obviously you've got a great eye as well as being a really talented artist. So, you know, one thing is surrounding yourself with people who are better than you and who can really bring your vision to life. And, you know, as you rightly put it, it was 100% a learning curve for all of us. But I'm so glad that, you know, this project was surrounded by really kind, talented people in order to kind of get the work done. Because as you know, it was like a machine. You know, it went on, and you were expected to do a lot within a relatively short time frame. I'm interested, what was your favorite part about the process?
Knowing, you know, that you had to collaborate on it and some things were going to change, you know, that I'd
Mm,
drawn, it wasn't going to be exactly the way it was drawn. It was like, yeah, learning to let go of that a little bit.
mm, mm,
But also what was really great about it is that, you know, like you say, you've been very kind about me, but I think that, you know, you're such a talented director and writer, and I saw like something in the story that I really wanted to help express as well. And when I watched the animation now, I can see all of us coming through in it, which is
mm,
really nice to see, you know.
mm,
And so that for me is like, you know, seeing it finished and complete, and knowing all of the hard work and all of like the long late night Zooms that we'd have with conversations about, you know, certain things that would go into it, and we were very kind of back and forth about, you know, what would work, and even like the smallest little detail, which was so
mm,
important, I think, as
100%.
well, because
Mm,
it has to, you know, the impact of the story has to really hit home.
mm,
And it was lovely as an illustrator to be, because one of the things that I love doing is storytelling as well, sort of thing.
mm,
So to be part of that journey of, you know, not just doing the illustration, you know, someone saying just create this for me, it's you're really involved in the process.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and it felt like all of our story, you know, even though you were the one with the vision and getting across to it, you made it very welcoming for all of us to come in and have our say and kind of put our little touches to it as well. One of the most challenging things, I would say, was there was discussion. I think Claire had the idea to start with, about maybe taking the lines out of the backgrounds, so that it was much more of a textured feel and there was no sort of hard lines to it. And that, for me as an illustrator, that was very difficult, because that's how I always work, with the harder lines, and it's my style and stuff like that. Again, once I kind of got my head around it and started, you know, cutting out these sort of textured designs. So I'd have the line designs and then start cutting out the textures and stuff like that. And then we start getting in place. And when we saw like the animated characters over the top,
Mm,
it really did work, because you was,
mm,
you know, again, the backgrounds needed to be in service of the characters.
mm,
But it was hard. It was, at the time, I remember it being hard for me to kind of go, oh yeah, I'll just give up on those lines and stuff like that.
yeah.
And
But
then another thing that was difficult was, I've never created so many files, and like, so I work on Procreate, and I was doing lots of layers and lots of different layers, and then I was sending it over,
mm,
and then but the animator needs those layers organized into certain ways so they
a
can
learning
animate
curve, yeah.
front of things and behind things. So then I
Mm,
got all those files back and had to
yeah,
reorganize them. So, which was, you know, for me, is not my forte. But
yeah, yeah.
again, it was something that I don't regret. I'm really pleased that that was something that I could learn, and I know, and that's a
Mm,
skill that I've got now, and I've actually
yeah.
taken it forward into being more organized with my artwork and not being so slapdash with it.
Right. But it's a
And
learning curve, isn't it? It's
yeah,
a learning curve, and I'm glad that, you know, you've said, because you've never done it before and you would never have known. So to have the kind of expertise and collaboration with obviously Leander, Claire, and the rest of the team,
mm,
um, you know, having to change our process was inevitable. And I loved how you spoke about the characters being in service, or
mm,
sorry, the background being in service to the characters, just complementing one another. And, you know, 100%, I love how everyone had to, even though, like you said, rightly said, everyone's vision, everyone's, you know, creativity is clearly seen within the short film. Um, everyone did to a certain degree have to um, almost bend isn't the right word, but almost be in service to the story. And I love
Yeah.
how we all came together, no matter what our experience or what, no matter what learning curve, you know. I love how we all kind of just got in there and did the work that needed to be done. So it was a great learning curve to see everyone grow and everyone 100% like learned something, and I think that's special.
Yeah, definitely. I'd 100% agree. I know I did, and I think that was it. Is probably, you're probably much more used to it as being, directing and collaborating with people to kind of be in that space to be ready for that. And most of what I do is just me on my own creating stuff, and it was so nice actually to, it was a challenge to kind of say to myself, no, it is in service of everything. But once I was in that space, it was really, great, and it was great to then
Mm.
see it all come together, and everyone's hard work of little different bits bring everything
Mm.
together. So yeah, that's really great.
100%, 100%. And I do have to obviously give you a massive shout out because for those who don't know, we did the process was I wouldn't say strange, but the process of having an illustrator on board as kind of your first person, and how vital you were not only to the illustration but to the process of literally getting this made. As you alluded to, we went to a workshop where we met, Joe, who is, someone within Screen South who kind of heads that up, and, Screen South for the funding body who essentially gave us some money to get this done. So you were there from the very start, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate, your input from the start until now. And I'm just really excited for people to see this, something that we've worked so hard on, something which has done really well at festivals and has
Mm.
shown around the world. So that's something special. But to close this off, I'm interested in what advice you would give to someone perhaps starting out, or even to kind of go closer to home, someone who perhaps is going from a full-time job into freelance, because obviously,
Mm.
for those who don't know, you have transitioned been a couple of years, correct me if I'm wrong, a couple
Yeah,
of years, yeah.
2.5, 3 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm interested on the two kind of elements within my question. What advice would you give to someone starting out? And
Mm.
what advice would you give to perhaps a person within full-time work transitioning into a freelancer doing what they love?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I wish I had all the answers to it, but no, I definitely think don't be afraid is a good thing to like try things out and not know exactly what you're doing. We both went into this, completely new to animation, not knowing how we'd get it done,
Mm.
and you're really good at that, and suggested going to the workshop, and then we met with Joe at Screen South, and even she up front said, animation's a lot of work to get done on this
She did, yeah.
budget, this amount of time.
Mm.
And it's one of those things. It's fairly early in my career, especially getting involved with film and animation. I do hope to do more, but
Mm.
the positivity that you had was infectious, and that gave me a lot of positivity to want to make this really happen, and kind of put in those extra hours to get it done. And we were towards the end getting towards the wire, and it was like late nights and stuff like that. But again,
Mm.
there was this a really a full sense of like, we're getting something really special done here.
Yeah.
And so I would definitely say, if there's something that you want to try, if you're an illustrator and you want to get into an animation, start going to like filmmaker workshops or meetups
Mm.
and stuff like that, and get talking to someone, and there is a space for you within that world.
Mm. Mm.
And we've proved it on this. I think normally there wouldn't normally be an illustrator doing as much work as I did on it. But because like the needs must of it, obviously Claire later on in the process was about to have a baby. That meant my role's kind of like extended a bit, and I picked up so many skills from it. And if I'd have been too scared to do it and say, oh, I don't know how to do it, then I never would have gained all those skills. So that's a bit of advice I'd give anyone that wants to get into doing it. With the becoming freelance and coming out of a full-time job, I would say, again, I get everything in place, get so you feel comfortable, and that you know what direction you want to go, kind of have a plan for at least this next year, maybe 2-3 years sort of thing, and think about what direction, because once you make the jump, you will get pulled in all different directions of what you want to do. But again, don't be afraid to say yes to try different things and see if that's the avenue you want to go down. Like at the moment, a lot of what I'm revolving around is actually putting on workshops. Now, never in my previous job did I think that I'd be able to stand up in front of people and do talks and try and teach them stuff. And I get a real sort of buzz out of now, and I really enjoy it. And I hope, the people that I'm teaching do too as well. And it's not an avenue that I necessarily thought I'd go down. It's not an avenue that I'll, eventually, I want to be much more within animation or children's book and stuff like that. But I'm glad that I can do it. And I'm glad that I can give something back. So yeah, just be open to seeing where things take you as well, I think would be my advice.
Love that. That's a lovely place to end on. And Mike, appreciate your time, talent on this project, of course. And I'm sure we'll catch up really soon anyway. But thanks so much for tuning in.
No, definitely. Thank you. Thanks, George.
Awesome.